One of the things, among my other activities is I run a program at Columbia for executive women called Women in Leadership. And one of the things we talk about in that program is what my colleague Adam Galinsky calls the low power double bind, which is that in any society, the group that's in the minority or the group that has low power has this exact problem. If you're too nice and warm and, welcoming and all that stuff, you're a lightweight. And if you're too aggressive, you get called abrasive or worse. And very, kind of very, very interesting. So the second point you made was that we get seduced, that we sort of fall into the spell of these narcissistic, psychopathic almost personalities. And it leads me to wonder, do we really want to judge people on the basis of how entertaining or interesting they are? When, maybe what we want is someone who's just a lot more boring and just gets the job done. And I wonder if there's a way to sort of make that at least something we check for.
Yeah. Well, first of all, this is one of the hardest ones to explain. And, I suffer from my own kind of a background and experience because I am, a recovering psychoanalyst at heart, having been, educated in Argentina in an area of Buenos Aires that has the highest concentration of psychoanalysts per capita in the world.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually
Why
called,
is that?
it used to be called Villa Freud. I don't know, it's a combination of sort of a neurotic intellectualism combined with tango and perpetually declining, political society, I guess. But then it's self-perpetuating because in order to become a shrink, a psychoanalyst, you have to be in therapy yourself, So it's like a reverse pyramid scheme in a way. We create more and more. And, of course, I'm not going to argue that Freud is apt or kosher for the standards of mainstream academic science today. Having said that, he was quite intuitive, and in his observations, much like some observations are now backed up by neuroscience research, which he didn't have access to because the tools were not available. And he has a wonderful explanation to answer that question, which is that he says that, typically the best you can hope for is that people replace their own narcissistic self-love with the love for someone else who promises to love them back. And that's how good relationships happen, and why we marry people who look a lot like us, because it's a legitimate way to display our narcissism. That's why managers and leaders hire people like themselves and call them high potential, because they love themselves. And from a follower perspective, we gravitate towards people who are narcissistic because they have these very enticing megalomaniac visions that tap into our own narcissism, So I'm going to make you great. I'm going to make you special. Vote for me, trust me, and we're going to take things to a different level, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now, this is one that is easy to address because every manager, hiring manager, leader, HR professional, or interviewer who ends up an interview with someone and says, I really like this guy or girl, they are very confident, they show great culture fit, we would really get along, I love their style, etc. They're probably focusing on these qualities, So, you could argue that the only way to focus more on substance and less on style is if you remove humans from the equation and use data assessments, like, make selection for leaders like blind tasting of wines. But we probably won't get there, right? But I find it quite interesting that the very things we want to attend to are the things we shouldn't attend to today, which is what's the person's gender, age, ethnicity, social class, accent. If you remove all of this and you actually focus on what they have achieved, their experience, their expertise, etc., and you make it more like blind tasting, you're going to debias selection and end up with better people, But you have to also then debias the performance evaluations. Because if I hire you because I really like you and you're confident and narcissistic in the interview, and I'm in charge of rating your performance after I hire you a year later, guess what? I'm not gonna reach the conclusion that I made a mistake, that I was wrong, and I'm still gonna like you for the same wrong reasons.